Hello, before we get started, let us first introduce ourselves. I am Claire Gilroy-Scott.
And I'm Katie Dias. We are both solicitors in the employment team at the city law firm Goodman Derrick. As many of you will know, last summer we ran a survey to find out how businesses were actually using social media. We found that 96% of businesses had a presence on at least one social media site. So clearly we have said goodbye to the world before social media. Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook were the most popular channels used. Our survey results confirmed what we thought. Social media really has become embedded in the workplace.
So to help educate you about the employment law risks associated with social media use, we have created a series of podcasts to help employers. This is part 7, which focuses on how to monitor your employees' use of social media and how to go about training your employees.
Evidence is often an issue when an employee leaves their employment and you suspect that they are using the network developed by you during their previous employment. Employers should therefore be ensuring that they are able to monitor the systems without infringing privacy. 75% of those surveyed had authority to monitor its employees' use of company IT systems, which is encouraging. Most, 48%, included this in some form of policy, and 30% included it in the employment contract, which really is the better way because then you have express consent from the individual. Some, around 7%, even obtained specific consent every time an employee logged on to the network.
The best way is obtaining express consent, because then there can be little argument that the employee knew and consented. Employers sometimes include a clause in the contract of employment which is supplemented by a fuller policy, giving details about how and why the monitoring will take place. Regardless of this, employers do not have complete freedom to look at all and everything that the employee posts. Monitoring should be proportionate. Employees should be provided with certain details about the monitoring before it takes place, and an impact assessment should be carried out to balance the needs of the employer against the employee's right to privacy. But remember that you need to think practically also. For example, you might want to widen out usual monitoring provisions to, for example, include contractual provisions to require an employee to hand over a password or allow access to a private account for the purpose of a disciplinary investigation.
We have already stressed the need to have a good social media policy in place, and if you haven't already, check out part 5 of our podcast for our views on that. But there is very little point in having a policy if employees do not know what it contains. Our survey found that 23% did not seem to know what the social media policy covered, and that may well be because only 17% of businesses provided training to their employees on the use of social media.
Training should essentially cover all aspects set out in your social media policy, but in much more depth and with practical application. The aim of training is to embed the spirit of the policy in each of the individuals in your organisation.
You will obviously want to cover all the employment aspects, but you will also want to think wider than just the legal issues, for example about your brand and reputation management generally, and about customer services. You will want to tackle not just deliberate abuse, but also postings which simply lack thought. By way of example, the first tweet on the slide states that Queen Elizabeth has died. This was posted in June 2015 by a BBC reporter who tweeted this supposedly not knowing it was a training exercise. However, she does maintain that she left her phone unattended and it was a silly prank by a colleague. As a result of the tweet, the BBC had to issue a formal statement apologising for any offence caused. The lesson to learn is to check carefully before posting anything on social media. The second tweet on the slide shows that law firms get it wrong too. It was a distasteful plug for personal injury work following the Alton Towers roller coaster crash, sent while victims were still being freed. The lesson to learn here is to think about how you as a business will be perceived by the public.
So who should you train? The answer to that is everyone in the organisation, from junior to senior level people. It is an important issue. You are likely to want to cover it in your induction process and also periodic refresher training thereafter. 83% of those who completed our survey do not seem to provide such training. This is something that should change given how widespread the use of social media now is.
If you've watched part 3A of our podcast series, you will already be familiar with the case of Crisp and Apple. In this case, Apple undertook an initial 10-day off-site core training course for all new employees, which covered a lot of information, including social media training. Day 1, which the employee Mr. Crisp attended, included training on protecting the company image, essentially being mindful of how you present yourself in public, including on social networks, and also the consequences. Mr. Crisp said that he could not recall these elements being covered. The employer struggled to show exactly what had been said during the training sessions, as the facilitator had no evidence to demonstrate this. So again, a lesson to learn from this case law. Make sure you document who, when, and what training each individual receives. It might be needed for evidential purposes in a disciplinary situation or even tribunal litigation.
Thank you for watching, but just before you go, no social media session would be complete without us sharing our social media presence with you, so please do follow us on Twitter @EmployHeroes and connect with us on LinkedIn. Please also get in touch should you need any employment law assistance. We would be happy to help.
And do check out our other podcasts for more information about social media in the workplace. Bye for now.